sort of brings us in to sort of the Iron Age thing as well. So right, so where are we? Hang on, hang on. Right, okay. Right, is it come up on the screen that it's
No, you're not
right?
sharing yet. We've got
Yeah,
you.
Oh,
it's
it
me.
said,
It's me.
yeah.
It's me. Right, so we are using the same technology as we did the other day, and the simple reason is the other one was off the mobile, so which is a little bit better. I don't know. This is better as well, but I had to have my new acting agent said I found you some work, and I thought you just found me some work in a day, and I just thought I've had my other acting agent couldn't find me anything at all, so it's quite pretty good. So I'm impressed with her. When somebody actually does something, it's good. Right, so we're all here. So it's first of all, where's David gone? Oh, there's David. David looks like he's cold. David, we got your check, right? So basically the bank details for the one are for the membership side of things, and the other bank details are for the class side of things. So that's why you had different details, David. But you did the right thing by sending a check anyway. That's fine. This is about the membership renewals, by the way, if anyone's wondering. So the yearly membership renewal, not the monthly thing, which is different. Right. Okay. So I've answered that for David because he did ask in a letter. So I've done that. Right. So who are we going to start off with? Drina, where have you been all your life?
I had family coming up 2 weeks, so it was great fun. Yes. So I'm sorry I wasn't here the last two lessons.
I tell you what, that's just a lame excuse. My excuses have been I've been helping ewes give birth, and other things like I'm having to chase my sheep across the fields because they've gone into the wrong field, or I'm having to inject some anti-inflammatories into the backside of a sheep. So your excuses are not nowhere near as good as mine.
Bit pathetic, aren't they? Yeah, after that.
They
Yeah.
are, yeah, they're really pathetic. But David's got a good excuse. He's the railway was falling into the river, right? He's got lapping water on his doorstep. So David's got a really good excuse there. Anyway, David can get to Barrow and Furnace, right? You guys can't when you're cut off. So there you go. David's got an advantage. Right, anything from you, David?
No, sorry.
Good. Talking about Hermann Goring, Andy.
No,
Don't ask where the Hermann Goring thing came from. I was just
no.
thinking about Margaret when I thought about that. Margaret, you got to have a bit of news for us because this is just getting too much every week. Nobody's got much to say, so we got you guys have got to say something, right? So Margaret, you got to make up some news now because it's not good enough.
Well, I was watching a Tony Robinson history program.
Yeah.
And I watched the bit about the Romans. It's going through all the ages, and it's about the ordinary people. It's not about the powers that be. It's about the ordinary folk. And he just was talking about the gladiators in Britain. They used, gladiators in Britain. And I can't remember where the place was. Somewhere down south where they had a bit of a coliseum. You'll know what it's called. It begins with the C.
Oh, Kirkus monuments. No, not Kirkus.
No.
The circus.
Yeah, but I can't remember where it was. But anyway, apart from that, they found just outside York 80 gladiator bodies, Roman bodies. And at least one of them had been gored by a big cat.
Now, can I get me wrong? They only sampled these, so I think they only looked at about 18 or 20 of them. They didn't go through them all. I don't think they did they?
I don't know.
No, I don't think they did. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. They were all in the church, weren't they? They were all lied out on tables.
He just said just outside York.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was a good one. Cool.
But they earned a fortune. The gladiators could earn just with they were not gladiating every week. It was just 2 or 3 times a year. And they could earn about £250,000 in today's money. They earned a lot of money.
do you know, I was listening to there was oh, hang on a minute, my phone's just there was a I was listening to a program on the radio, and there was this black African aircraft officer in the RAF. There was only about 5 in the RAF serving in Britain. And the point is, he said that over his like 2 years with Bomber Command, they only flew about 5 or 6 flights, right? Because they knew that maybe the 6th flight you'd be dead. And he actually got shot down. And it's quite surprising. When you mentioned about the gladiators, we think that these people are flying every single minute up in the air, but it's really exhausting. And gladiators as well. It's a really exhausting thing. But yeah, it's a bit of a similarity there. Yeah, just wanted to say that.
Danger money.
Yeah, well, when you think about it, I think the average lifespan in the RAF in the Second World War was 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was quite shocking. Talking about shocking, the only one that's shocking amongst all of us is Roger. Go on, Rog, give it to us.
Actually, Carl, still doing my things to get the maps I was on about.
Oh,
And
yeah.
because the only thing
Yeah.
I've noticed that there were remains in the 1880s. So whether we can get any photographs of that with archives is something else.
Can I just
Right.
Yeah, well, actually, is this the site that's marked on a map that I got from 1800 that says Tumulus?
Say that again?
Because I've actually got a map from the 1800s, an Ordnance Survey map, one of the earliest ones, and it actually says Tumulus over by just sort of by the hospital. It's got the word Tumulus, and I'm thinking it might actually be that. So what I need is more information from you, Roger, and you need to get it over to me so I can put because I got something for you. I just need to know whether it's the right thing or not, Rog. I got a map here.
I'm looking at the Roman roads again and realize a few things to see what they would have used for the routes
Yes.
on the. I've read your book as well on the tracks way. It would have been a
Yes.
trackway, a lot of it, rather than a posh Roman road.
Yes.
But there's a lot of evidence here and there for different network, let's say, around the city and out all directions.
Do you know?
I got more of that,
Yeah, good. Do you know what I've when I've told you guys this, we've basically dug out the workings for an old quarry, right? And we haven't gone any deeper because if we start to go deeper, we're going to start to get into prehistoric stuff, which we're not doing yet. And that gravel itself, we've been just spreading to create a trackway, right? And it's perfect material, and you just chuck it on the earth, right? And you've got the cars going on back and forwards on it, and it's perfect. You don't need to build a road in the way that these people say they need to build a road. Lots of these Roman engineers had normal quarries, right? And it's just metalling ways basically, and they're not as complex in as we're told at school, right? So that's a good point. If the material, and and the other thing as well is this quarry, right? There's as I've described the quarry, it's nearly 2 meters deep, and it rains and water doesn't build up in it; it just goes through. When on the rest of this place, water stays on the surface. It's really odd. Anyway, Roger, get that over to me. And finally, Peter, we're going to start. Go on, Pete. Pete! Oh,
yeah, no, nothing for me.
I thought you were asleep.
Almost.
Oh, God.
Not yet.
Right, okay. Not yet. Right, so what we're going to do, we're going to share. Hopefully, we're going to do the screen. There's the cockerel telling me I've got to start. And we're just going to go on the screen now and go. And hopefully, there. Oh, this does actually work a lot. It works a bit quicker actually. It's just trying to get used to it, to be honest.
It's in black and white.
Well, that's not in black and white.
That isn't now, no.
Well, hang on. Yeah, hang on, Margaret, right? We've got black and white images today. So what?
Yeah, the black and white ones are in black and white, and the color ones are in color.
Don't tell Margaret that. She won't be able to work it out. Can I just make a comment, Andy, right? Why is it you've agreed with me on two things this evening? One, that Margaret is definitely a witch, right? Yeah, let's just move on.
Yeah,
right.
I'm tired. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, do you know what? I should be bullying people, not you. It's just not good. Right. So I was very interested in this one, and it's obviously a tree, right? And this was sent to me, and I just thought I really liked this one because it was a tree that had blown over in Ireland, right? And in place Sligo in Ireland, it sort of toppled over, and an ancient and what they found underneath that tree was a body. So yeah, you can imagine that the tree's blown over, and the next thing you see is a body, right? And they believe it was some kind of murder. The headlines are Ancient Sligo Island, murder mystery uprooted during storm to remain unsolved. Right. So actually this has come to life now, and the skeletal remains were discovered after this beech tree was blown over. And obviously it goes to show that, you know, it's quite shallow, the earth there. But one thing I will say before I go on to the details of this article, right, is, and there's the bones, is that gypsy communities used to bury their loved ones in a hedgerow, right? Now, we don't know if this tree was ever part of a hedgerow, and it's a beech tree. What you would usually do if you bury a body in a hedgerow is put an acorn there, but this is a beech tree, right? So it's slightly different. So then we go down the track of a 1,000-year-old murder mystery exposed by a fallen tree, and it's said will remain just that. Skeletal remains, there they are. Skeletal remains of a medieval young man with evidence of stab wounds to his chest and left hand were discovered among the roots of a 200-year-old beech toppled by a storm in Ireland, actually last year. So we're talking about 10 months ago, May last year. Archaeologists spent weeks on the land near Collooney, County Sligo Island, Collooney, what a nice name, recovering bones from the scene believed to have been an early Christian burial site. Ah, right, okay, but obviously because we got the stab wounds in chest and the hand, right, it's very different from a normal burial, which I'm sure you would all agree. Months of analysis and radiocarbon dating revealed the man lived, and the problem is the soil was contaminated, so we've got an average date between the 1030s and 1200 years AD. He was taller than average. In fact, he was quite tall, really, 5 foot 10 inches. Now, deeper scientific research by bone specialists suggests the dead man was aged in his late teens to about 20. So obviously they don't have a complete assemblage of material, and that he suffered also from a mild spinal condition or disease whilst working in physical labor. And I think it's rather interesting that that we find bodies like this, and people go into a lot of analysis. And I like that forensic archaeology, because can I just sort of go off on a sideline? You guys know that I do the local column for the local newspaper. Well, actually, it's published regionally, but I had a photograph of something today, and I just thought, right, okay, and I ended up writing 5 paragraphs on it. So there's like a horse trough opposite the Barry train station with loads of like green growth in it, and obviously the green growth, so, you know, there's a spring leading into it. And I looked at the maps and I couldn't find any evidence of this on early maps. And I thought, right, okay, they hadn't put it on the maps actually. And I could tell by the stonework that the stonework was from a quarry that dated back to the late 1880s, even though it's not on the map. So what I'm trying to get at is that when we do archaeology, it's a lot of forensic clue seeking. Archaeologists, again, looking at this body, looking at the bones, said there was no other material or clues from the site, and no other investigations can be carried out to discover the story behind the burial. It's not massively rare or massively unusual to find remains of this type. But obviously, when a tree comes over, yeah, really interesting. But we don't know if he was killed in a battle or if he was he had personal combat with somebody. But the community or his family did recover him and gave him a proper Christian burial. They say we have sifted through everything from the area around the grave and found nothing, no buttons, no coins, nothing. But that is not unusual. Normally with burials or of this type, the dead were wrapped in a shroud of some description, and that's all. And usually the body was naked, actually. And usually you might have a shroud ring on the top of the shroud. So as you wrap the body in the shroud, you have a shroud ring at the head, shroud ring at the bottom, right? So, well, we didn't find a shroud ring with this one, so that's that.
Are we just
The
looking at
closure of
his
the
legs? I can only see his legs.
Yeah. So what you're doing, if the body is facing the feet are on the left, and the rest of the body's on the right. The thing is, I can only see the legs as well, and I don't really. Well, we'll carry on with the article. We'll carry on what it says. The closure of dig and the skeletal remains going into storage as required in the law in the National Museum of Ireland effectively pulls the shutters down on the cold case. There are no plans to name the man or for reburial, which is a bit of a shame. This is a point in Ireland. I didn't know this. It's said about bodies in Ireland that archaeologists would rarely rebury material unless it is very recent, from about the 1800s, which to me, yeah, that's something that appalls me, to be honest with you. If a body's been found, it should be reburied, but that's me. Right, so yeah, so there isn't much in the way of bones there, and I'm thinking that well, there must have been spinal bones, because you wouldn't have been able to work out the spinal condition. So that, but there is a point here. You might be able to postulate that there was a spinal condition by the way the pressure was placed on the bones, the femur and the what you've got, the tibia, and you've got the kneecaps there, the patellas as well. You might be able to work out that there were spinal problems, but obviously pretty sure that there were spinal bones there. So I thought that was really interesting. The other article of the week is actually on the screen now. This is quite odd, and the reason why this is quite odd, it's a fort that's been found in the sea in Ireland again. So archaeologists discovered a sunken prehistoric fort in a place known as Clew Bay Island, again in Ireland, and that's the fort there. So I'm thinking you can actually see an alignment there, right, which goes through the center of the screen, which is this thing. Oh, hang on, which is this thing here. So you've got that alignment there. So I'd assume that that's part of it. And it says a sunken prehistoric fort has been discovered on Clew Bay Island off the North Mayo Coast Island. It has been reported that the discovered fort may be as important as one of the forts on something known as the Aran Islands, which is the Dun Argasa fort. So it's a large stone-built fort with obviously stone banking and so on. It is located at the edge of a 100-meter high cliff. So obviously this is in the sea. So when it says the edge, this is obviously below the edge. That's the only way I can work out what's going on. The discovery of several large ramparts slicing through the tidal isthmus, connecting the island to the shoreline outside of Westport, provided the first clue. One of the bigger islands in the bay, karl-james, which is accessible by foot at very low tides. So there's obviously lots of forts that are off the coast that were low-lying forts that have now been overtaken by the sea, which is rather interesting. Instead of having a cliff line that's being eroded and everything goes from the cliff line and that nothing's left. You're getting something here. One of the it's talking the set of double ramparts are faced with large limestone blocks and extending for 200 to 300 meters and are most likely to be late Bronze Age in date. So late Bronze Age. So it's really interesting that we've got a Bronze Age fort, which is something that we don't talk about. We usually talk about Iron Age forts, but a Bronze Age fort. Very interesting that. So all these features are covered at high tide, and the site is so large and coated in seaweed that one can see why it wasn't discovered before. The archaeologists said they were lucky that day as there were men cutting seaweed in the same area. That rampart there on the left there, this outer rampart, as in the one nearest the mainland, was known to the locals, but they had no idea how old it was or how significant it is and what it was. Their scale, the size and scale would suggest that the island was of major strategic importance at the time. It's said that the ramparts are similar to other coastal and lake promontory forts across Ireland, with the closest ramparts being found to the north, including very large forts in the north. It's going back to talk about the Bronze Age again. Late Bronze Age eel forts are the largest monuments built in Ireland and can measure up to, wait for it, 320 acres in area. Right. So if you compare that with Maiden Castle, which is 50 acres in area, right, 320 acres in area is quite a sizable site. And it's described that that's a kilometre of defensive ramparts, at least, actually more than that. And it makes you think. That this is a question that we're going to come across when we talk about the Iron Age sites, which will be in a few weeks' time or whatever. One of the things I will say is that if you've got a defensive site and you've got 150 people going there at a certain time, you're not going to be able to man the whole fort. So what is the point in building these massive defenses? What do they actually say? So we're not going to answer that question, and we're not doing that tonight. But that's to put in your minds anyway. So the latter part of the Bronze Age was a time of settlement expansion and economic prosperity in Ireland. Are we saying the same about mainland Britain? Hill forts are another manifestation of, it's in this article saying, a warrior culture that emerged not only in Ireland but across Europe during the latter part of the Bronze Age. Okay, that's something else. They were built by warlord-dominated societies, and we have very good evidence they were in active use during periods of warfare between various tribes. I'm going to leave that with you. I'm not saying it's not saying that that's something that I go with or want to aspire to, but it's obviously interesting to see this site in Ireland to sort of get that idea. Now, so what I wanted to do was I wanted to show you this, and this is a wonderful site. I've been there. I've been there with my beautiful daughter Bethan, and I'm just going to put the light on as well. Hang on. There we go. Oh, good. I can see. I went to this site with my beautiful daughter Bethan and Michelle. I've got to say my beautiful Michelle as well. She'll get jealous. And I wanted to just chuck this in here today because it was just looking at me, and I just thought I'm going to chuck this in here. And actually, what I want to do as well is I want to before we get onto the pottery bit, right? I want to read something out from another book, right? And I want to ask if you want me to do something from this other topic, which is something that I stay away from, right? So anyway, let's have a little look at this. So this isn't by far, this is not by any stroke of the imagination Bronze Age, right? But you can imagine people living within this landscape where this is, which is in North Wales. Now, as you see, Wales is that little arm thing that sticks out into the sea just south of Anglesey, the island of Anglesey, and it's on the Clean Peninsula. And this is a site known as Treacherry Hill Fort, and it's an amazing site, and it's a beautiful image. This is absolutely spectacular image, and if you ever do anything with me, right, I always do it the hard way, right? So my daughter and Michelle, we got out the car, right, and it took us 1 hour to get to the top because I took them on the north side there. I didn't take them on the footpath in there, right? So we ascended all that stuff. It took us 1 hour to get there, and then it took us 20 minutes to walk back. Typical. Peter knows what I'm like when I take people on walks. Anyway, it's a beautiful site. It's absolutely beautiful, and the reason why I'm showing you this is just to sort of think, why are they building these forts? Is it to do with what we mentioned in Ireland? So obviously we're coming to the end of the Bronze Age, we're going into the Iron Age. When we look at the island of Ireland, in that article which we just read out, they're talking about a warrior culture. They're talking about building hill forts and all these things that go bump in the night, and things are going really well in Ireland and so on. I'm going to say leave that there, right? And I'm going to say, why are they building these sites, right? Is there more to it than just defense? Is it more to it than just showing off, right? They're putting a lot of effort into building these things. Again, that's to go into your mind. This is obviously going from the end of the Iron Age, end of the Bronze Age, into the Iron Age. This is so described. So if you want to look any more about this on the internet, right, you might not get an image as good as this, but that's life. So this is Triakerry Hill Fort, a citadel of scree and stone. Few Welsh prehistoric sites capture the imagination of the power of the world that we are now moving into the Iron Age. And it's talking about this towers over the Llŷn Peninsula from the easternmost summit of the three peaks of Ir Effill. Triakerry is enclosed by a formidable single rampart with a partial outer wall surviving in places at 3.5 meters high, right? So it's a 3.5 meter wall still around the whole thing, right? It's great, formidable ramparts. So they're having to cut this stuff into solid rock, right? So they meant their salt, right? But when you think about defense, they are going a little bit over the top, and this is why I keep on saying, when we start thinking about the Iron Age and we start thinking about these sites, it's like, well, is there something more to it? What is driving them to build these things? And you start to see that, for example, right? This is all, I'll say it from my point of view. I built a house, as you know, which I'm really proud of. I've got a roof; it's never leaked. Touch wood. The walls don't leak. It's the floor, the floor, and all the rest of it. It's great, right? But I've had enough of living in here, to be honest with you. So I'm going to we're now going to dig a massive hole in the ground, and we're going to use this in the summer for work, right? In the winter months, we're gonna live in a souterrain, which is an underground or a Gruben house building, because it's much warmer and it's much more cushy, right? And the reason why I'm mentioning that is that it's not, none of this is for defense. We don't have the same problems as the people in the past, but we have foxes around here, right? So I've got to lock my animals in at night, right? We've got badgers around here which would easily kill a lamb, right? And you've got to think about all these things when you think about these people in the past, right? Anyway, move away from that. So what we've got, if we look at that, that's an aerial view of looking at some of these sort of cellular-like buildings, right? Hang on, cellular-like buildings, down, up, down, right. I've lost that a minute. There, right. You've got these cellular-like buildings, and they're really interesting, these buildings. And we will actually look at the Triakerry site in massively more detail. But what I'm trying to do is build you up for this sort of the Iron Age stuff, because again, the reason why I've got pottery tonight is I want us to sort of allow us to understand the Iron Age in regards to pottery as well. So this is a very, very special place at over 450 meters above sea level. It is visually stunning, an investment with meaning and histories, but it is also an expo about that. You've got to think about why are they doing this here, right? When the land that they need to graze their sheep is below them, where the land that they need is just rubble and rock. Yeah. are animals that are going to struggle up here. You know, it's the why are they doing this, right? The other thing as well is the population is divided. You're not talking about millions of people wandering around. In the thousands on the Clean Peninsula. There's a big weird peninsula that goes into the sea. So the outlines of these buildings is very much based on Bronze Age structures, right? So the outlines of the stone built of the occupants in the hospitable location. So we've got to ask ourselves, is there something not quite right in what I'm saying, right? It's in a hospitable now. Was it in a hospitable?
Sound isn't very good, Carl. We can't hear you properly.
That is a really good question. Building. You can't hear me properly.
No.
Is everybody else getting this problem?
Yeah.
Right, you can hear me.
No.
Right.
It's breaking up. It's kind of like if you've got a sentence, we're getting the important bit of the information is breaking up, and then we're getting all the rest of it, and then on to the next one. And so it's kind of just suddenly started about a minute ago.
Oh well, we can easily sort that, Andy. I'll just bring my other voice on. Right, so we'll hang on a minute. We'll just we'll do something a minute. So if Andy, can you add my other profile in, please? Yeah. And can you make my?
I'm not. I can't. It's not listed anywhere. Oh, hang on. No, I'm not getting it.
All right then. I'll tell you what. I'll do it. Stop that. I'll tell you what. If I will soon sort out the sound now. Right. Okay. There. So if I make that one a make a co-host. Co-host. Right, we've got two co-hosts. If I turn off my mic, mute. Right, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. How's it? Is that sounding okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Thanks.
Right, so that's clear. There's no echo?
Well, it's difficult to tell because you've only said short sentences. Not getting anything at the moment.
Okay.
There is a bit.
What about now?
No, that's good.
Is that working?
Yeah.
Yep.
Better?
Yep.
Oh, right, cool. See, I can do these things. So any problems, just let me know, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Good. Anything for you, Andy? Right, where were we?
That's so kind, Carl.
And look, Roger, I was talking to Andy, not you, okay?
Sorry.
You know, Roger, if I wanted to talk to you, Roger, I would. I don't want to talk to you.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, all right then. So, oh God, hang on a minute. How have I got that? It's all gone wrong.
There's a pot.
Are we back with it? Good. Okay. Excellent. Right. So what we were saying was that the hill fort, there was probably something there in the Bronze Age, right? Oh yeah. The point I was making is that when we think about this as inhospitable today, was it inhospitable in the past, right? And that's the question that you've got to ask yourselves. So obviously there's a lot of rubble up there. And obviously they would have needed the valleys to have planted their crops. You can't sort of plant crops in rubble. And your animals ain't going to graze up there as well, right? So the thing is what is this thing about, right? They're obviously living there, but they're not going to be able to live there full time, and it's just that whole thing, right? Maybe in the summer months they're living here, and in the winter months they're living in the valleys, and it's that juxtaposed to try and work things out. So when we look at this, we know that this site was still occupied into the 300s by the archaeological evidence that we got there, and in one of the buildings that they've actually excavated within this site, which are all these here, one of the buildings that they excavated was actually contained objects from the Roman era, a gold-plated brooch, suggesting that people continued here in the Roman era. So the one thing I wanted to do was just to sort of lead us where we're going, to try and understand that things are very, very different from the Bronze Age into the Iron Age. So what I want us to do now is I want to ask you a question, right? We're going to leave this image here, right? And I can't really hear my voice at this minute at all, which is one of those things. But I actually looked yesterday, and I thought, right, do I actually look at, in the Bronze Age, prehistoric astronomy and ritual? And I just thought it's something that I don't do, and it's something that I avoid doing. And I just thought that maybe I should do, not this week, but in the future, a class looking at prehistoric astronomy and ritual. Now, is that the type of thing, Margaret, that you might interest you? Margaret, why is everybody falling asleep tonight?
She gave a thumbs up.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes.
What about you, Andy? Would that
Yeah,
your boat?
I think to keep an open mind, we should be looking at all avenues, really. So
Yeah.
That's a good thing when you look at avenues, Andy. That's good.
Mm.
So what I'll do, I'm gonna actually read the introduction of this book to you now. It's by Aubrey Burl. It goes as follows: discovery and proof of prehistoric astronomy and ritual, which is quite a bold statement. It goes as follows: think about Stonehenge, okay? Think about Mice Howe. Think about Newgrange. Think about all these monumental sites that we've discussed. So let's have a quick look. And maybe think about this site as well, and think about how things are developing within the landscape. Prehistoric people looked at the skies for protection, but archaeology has been reluctant to accept such a heresy. The belief that ancient stone circles and burial monuments was laughed at until late in the 1900s. In 1930, George Engelhardt, great name, derided the idea. Orientation has no sounder basis in objective fact or logic than had the druidical, draconian, phallic, and other obsolete imaginings. He was wrong. As early as 1740, the antiquarian William Stukeley, in his later years, was the first to recognize a solar alignment. The intention of the founders of Stonehenge was to set the entrance full northeast, being the point where the sun rises, or nearly at the summer solstice, he noted. The "or nearly" was an unfortunate mistake caused by his faulty theodolite. 30 years later, a Dr. John Smith, having read Stukeley, corrected the error. The stone number 1, the outlying heel stone, the one by the old road that was Stonehenge, in the middle of the Grand Avenue to the temple, is the key. At the summer solstice, when the days are longest, he enters the sign Cancer and seems to rise in the same point of the horizon 3 days later. By the by the later part of the 1800s or the 1800s, investigators were enthusiastically, sometimes over enthusiastically, examining prehistoric sites for sight lines. Peter knows what I'm talking about. And slipshod claims for precision encouraged skepticism among archaeologists, including one of the greatest, Gordon Chard, the excavator at Skara Brae and Orkney. He was as dismissive as Engelhardt in the 1930s, claiming it is fantastic to imagine that the ironclad inhabitants, the ill-clad inhabitants of these Boreal Isles should shiver night long in rain and gale, peering through the driving mists to note eclipses and planetary movements in our oft-veiled skies. I gotta say something on that, Andy. Right, I'm gonna say something. Right, Andy mentioned earlier on. Right, there's a good point. And Andy mentioned earlier on about this eclipse thing that lasted 5 minutes, and I've actually been to Avebury at night, and I've been to Woodhenge. And no matter what time of the year it's cold, Stonehenge, no matter what time of the year it's cold at night, right? And I'm just thinking these ideas, these imagery, and I think that's, for me, that's about right. Why would people shiver night long in rain and gale? Why would they do that? But Andy's right. I got to look with an open eye on this. So let's just carry on a little bit further. Like Engelhardt, he was wrong, but he was to have decades of followers serving as an army of resistance among colleagues. Their stubborn opposition often coming from an unwillingness or inability to understand the intricate cycles of the moon movements. So he's talking about archaeologists not able to think outside the box, which I feel that I do. A complexity that gave even the astronomer Sir Isaac Newton a headache when studying the lunar subtleties. Astronomy would not disappear when looking at archaeology, these archaeological sites like the Ringastennis and Castlereagh and all these other sites. It's said that lots of researchers, loads of researchers, loads of scholars would prove that convincing solar and lunar alignments did exist. A roof box over the entrance to the passage tomb of Newgrange in Eastern Ireland that allowed the rays of the midwinter sunrise to illuminate the burial chamber. Other solar orientations at Micehow, the passage tomb in Orkneys, at West Kennet, on Marlborough Downs, at Stony Littleton, south of Bath, lunar alignments among the earth and long barrows at Salisbury Plain as well, near Stonehenge. Sight lines in many stone circles and lines of standing stones are things that are cited by these people who are not skeptics, who actually believe in lots of these alignments. Peter will say, and Peter's mentioned this a number of times when we went to the Horse at Uffington, there was some kind of weird ley line alignment going through the entrance of the Uffington fort above the horse that we refer to as the Uffington horse, the White Horse. And finally, one of the most astonishing sights is the finely restored megalithic tomb in Morban in Brittany. Actually, it contains not one but two alignments, not just to the sun or to the moon, but to both. Odd. Its long passage and art gallery of lavish decorated pillars, which we will do, faces southeast towards the most southerly moonrise. There is more from the south side, the end chamber, to the north side of the entrance. A second sight line is directed on the midwinter sunrise. And the one thing about all this is to think that if we do a talk like this, it's going to be quite odd. There'll be lots more, obviously lots of images, because I'll just give you an intro. The builders erected an architectural signpost where the solar and lunar lines crossed each other halfway down the passage. They placed the only stone with no carvings. It is a rough block of white quartz standing in conspicuous isolation, silently emphasizing the astronomical intersection in the tomb. And the one thing about all this is to observe the yearly movements of those heavenly bodies needing an explanation within these monuments that are all around us. So again, that will be for the future. But now, oh, and by the way, we've got a few people watching online. We've got who have we got online? We've got this is Kate. She's saying murders happened. Wasn't a child body found inside a Roman fort somewhere in Britain? And it said talking about a calendar. I think it originally was about time lapse a calendar. I am just now looking at this myself. So somebody's researching this. I am expecting delivery of ancient Egyptian calendar today. So somebody in the States is talking about the fact that, can we see these as special sort of astronomical and ritual associations? But where I will go. I always say that when you look at prehistory, what you've got to do when you look at prehistory is that you've got to think about prehistory as a varied school. So if you've got a school, you've got one person who's from Africa, one person who's from America, one person from England, one person speaking one language, one person this and one person that, and this is what prehistory is like. It's a bit of a mix. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like us to go to looking at prehistoric pottery, and trying to understand prehistoric pottery a little bit better. So yes, I'm sorry, we do have some black and white images. Well, in fact, all the images now are black and white. So here we go. So when we think about pottery, when we've seen pottery, it's either really rigid or it's overbearing, or round bottoms, big items from the Neolithic period. So what we're gonna do is define what's going on in pottery in the later ilk. The pottery in the later prehistoric period is a very large subject indeed, and it would be impossible to just bring it to you in one moment. So where we are now is 1,000 years BC, and we're gonna and when we look at this pottery, it sort of takes us directly into the Iron Age. For most of this time, when we look at this pottery, there are no written records. And by looking at pottery, these artifacts in pottery themselves speak and offer us as much information as a bone object would, or a wooden object, or a metal object, or structures. Pottery can tell us stories. I used to always love watching Time Team, and somebody used to pick a piece of pottery, and they used to use that piece of pottery and build a whole town with it. Very odd, but that was Time Team. Pottery is especially important. Pottery because it often survives when other things do not. So when you think about, we're trying to find human bones, animal bones, they don't survive in some situations. Okay. Flesh doesn't survive in most situations. Okay. Wood doesn't survive either. All right. Linen don't survive either in most conditions. Lots of things just don't survive, but pottery usually does. It can be recognized by observant laymen and women as it lies exposed in fields or gardens. The first signs of archaeology in prehistory, as prehistory develops into the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, is to actually find flints, but more and moreover, to actually find the pottery itself. Although it is often a similar color to the earth from which it was made, it is different in texture. And one thing that I always say when anybody's going out looking at pottery is the best time to ever find pottery when you're field walking is on a freezing cold winter day. And the reason why, when the best time to start is usually about 9-10 o'clock. There's rudimentary science behind this. So you're going across a field and there's a piece of pottery there lying in front of you. And like the rest of the landscape, it's been covered with a sort of like a frozen dew across the landscape. Now, when the sun comes up, the sun heats a surface, and the surface is a piece of pot. The sun doesn't heat the surrounding earth, but it'll heat the surface, which is a pot. So as you're wandering across the field, even though it might be sort of slightly white and slightly cold, with your trowel, you can scoop in and get that piece of artifact. That's the best time to find pottery, not on a wonderful summer day. That's when most people like to go out, like Claire. Nah, Claire's as hard as the rest of us. For example, And when we think about pottery, we can get some really interesting designs on them. And you can see here that they make these designs by using stamps. They make these designs by making dies. They might get some rope, whether it's made of whether it might be made of nettle, whether depending on other parts of the world you might be using cotton or whatever. So you can make sort of designs on these things as they're just wet before they go green. So when they go green, it's a little bit more solid, and you can actually put them in a kiln. So pottery is hugely important. It's a vessel. Actually, vessel is pottery is a vessel, but it's a vessel of information. It tells us so much. And when we think about pottery, one thing that we can think about pottery is that, you know, you can find out if there was what was in it. If you don't wash the thing when it comes out of the earth, you can work out if it's being heated above a fire. All these different things forensically working out. So, you know, let's just sort of think and sort of get an idea of forms and types of these pots. Just sort of show you sort of, and this is a rather weird one. This is a very much later object from Eastbourne, and sort of lots of these designs, sort of lots of these sort of shapes, as these publications like to sort of offer us. So it is often the only tangible survival to indicate the way of life of the inhabitants of a rural site and the approximate dates of its occupation. So that's really important. So a piece of pottery doesn't just tell you that they had pottery, right? It doesn't just tell you that they're using it to store milk, right? It tells us about how they're living their lives, how they're eating, whether they've got surplus, and they've got time to make pottery. They've got excess. They're able to trade. So what you get with these, you've got sort of semi-rounded base on this one. On the one at the top there, this is sort of early Iron Age. So this would more likely be dating from roughly about 600-700 years BC, and it's referring to as a furrow bowl. So you've got those nice little furrows running through it. So one of the things the notes tell me that when you're looking at this pottery, this decoration can be very involved and intricate, so that it could be imagined as a way of filling the long winter evenings when tales were recited by the central hearth. You keep hearing that, and whether life was like that, maybe it was, but I think when you see designs and decorations on these pots, it sort of allows us to go into a sense of folk culture, allow us to sort of understand who these people are, sort of get connected. Pottery, as well as being very durable, is often found in very large quantities at the end of the Bronze Age, going into the Iron Age. So, and that is a really interesting statement, that as you're into the Iron Age, there's lots of pottery around. So that what can that possibly tell us? And there's lots of different types of pottery around, lots of different types of decoration. There's pots traded from different areas, right? So what does that tell us? How does that really help us that we're getting lots of pottery? It must mean that there's lots of excess. It's quite simple. It's quite simple. If you've got lots of pottery, you're obviously got lots of reasons to use the pottery. There is one thing that could be said, is that when you don't get pottery on some sites in their Iron Age or late Bronze Age, so roughly about 700 years BC, 2,700 years ago, it's probably because their populations are quite small. They don't need lots of pottery. They haven't got the clays to make the pot, and they're simply using wooden and stone, and bone and so on, as purposed for the things that you would use pottery for in normal ways. So lots of the pottery can be coarse. When you think about coarse pottery, there's usually lots of grit in it, and it's coarse where basically when you fire a pot, actually, what would be good is if I hang on, let me just try something a minute. When I try something, it don't go, does it? Right, hang on. Right, okay. I was just going to draw something, and if I could just go off there, and I just go draw something. Right, okay. This is a very interesting. I'm going to show you this now, and hopefully, okay. And hang on a minute. Oh, I didn't know on here we don't have a drawing thing. Right, okay. The point I was going to make was that when you've got coarse pottery, it's not always because they can't be bothered to take the gravel out by puddling it with their feet. It's not always because there's lots of fine gravel and sort of really big bits of sand in the clay. When you have that in a pot and the temperature is slowly rising, what happens instead of the moisture spreading out of the pot, causing cracks to be in the pot, what happens is the moisture gathers around the little bits of gravel in the pot and the little bits of sand, right? The moisture, and that prevents cracking. That's basically what that is. So we get coarse and uncoarse pottery, and when we think about the pottery back in the day, we think about it's all handmade. It's all pottery in Britain is all handmade from Neolithic times, even before Bronze Age, Iron Age. We only get wheel made pottery in Britain towards the end of the Iron Age, roughly around the birth of Christ. And it's you can imagine you get a big slab of clay, right? And you sort of work it. You remember working the clay when you were children. Get your thumbs in there and just work it up. Get your thumbs in there, work it up. Get your thumbs in there, work it up. Or you can make pottery using the coil method, where you just basically have one long length of clay, right? And it's very important that it is one long length of clay, right? Because you make the middle bit, right, and you keep going, and now you're going to build up the sides. You're going to build up the sides. You're going to build a bit more clay. You're going to build up the sides, bit more clay. Clay's run out, right? And then you smooth it on the outside, smooth it on the inside, right? And you can't really add any more clay to that. And the reason why it's going to cause cracking, right? Because the clay itself needs to be sort of integrated as one sort of fluid piece to sort of make the coil. So we're not really thinking about the potter's wheel being introduced, and some people might say the potter's wheel might be introduced roughly around the Julius Caesar invasions of Iron Age Britain in 56, 55, 54 BC. But again, most workshops in Britain are going to be basically pottery without a wheel. And the other thing as well is this is quite clear that what you get is that what you find over time, the pottery itself, the pottery itself gets thinner and thinner, so you need less and less clay, and they're able to understand the way to do that by heating the pots over basically you've got the kiln. Right, so that you roughly know that's about 200 degrees C. You stack the pots in there, right, and you keep adding sort of more fuel in there, right, and you start to seal off the flue, right, and you start to sort of keep the heat in there, sort of grow it to 400, 500, gently rising, right. And if you do it that way, you can have more thinner walls for the pots. Let's go back to some of these images again. So, hang on a minute. Let's go back to the images and oh, do you know what? There is a whiteboard. It's there. Hang on a minute. It's sharing. Right. Okay. Share. Get back to the images. Okay. So right, here we go. And start. Brilliant. Okay. Back to my images. Good. Back to this one. So again, it's when we look across Britain, there's lots of different designs of pottery. Lots of people are making pottery. You know, it's not it's not one style. It's not one meets all. Any pottery is the type of thing that people are to be seen using. Because what a potter's going to go from one place and say, this is how we're making pots, and then somebody's going, oh, this is how we're making pots here. So I think when we started looking at cauldrons, that was really interesting when we looked at the copper cauldrons, bronze cauldrons to iron cauldrons. Why, what is going on with the technology, and then obviously alongside that you've got pots that don't store as much liquid, but naturally you're going into the Iron Age and you've got loads and loads of pots, loads and loads of pots you're actually finding on archaeological sites. And the other thing as well is with pottery is very much tradable. As you start to go into the Iron Age, there's more and more pottery that's actually coming over from Gaul, from modern day France, Belgium, Germany. Lots of different types of pottery are actually coming on over to our wonderful land. So again, looking at this image, and we start to see this sort of development of this technology, and we start to see the pottery as coming into its own. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually have a little look at a section of some designs of pots, which is here, right? And that comes up on your page, right? And you've got all these different designs, which we're going to actually have a little look at now. So the pottery described here helps to fill the gap, and it's sort of what we've got is 1 minute we're in the Bronze Age, and then the next minute we're into the Iron Age, and we're starting to see how things are. So what we're going to think about is that all these different types of pots, that's got a flat base, right? Really nice sort of crinkled flat base there. You're starting to get these sort of really nice bodied pots. You're starting to get external decoration. You got some design on there, and you're starting to get more of a form there. All these different types. You actually got a stand on that one as well, which is as they're evolving their different types, their different types of pottery over time. So when we're looking at this, we start to see that pottery itself is one of those things that seems to move around a lot towards the late Bronze Age into the Iron Age, and what we start to see is that they actually burnish the outside of them, so they actually polish them. So that's basically what that is. What you would do, and this is called burnishing, right? So what you do with the first type there is that it would go green. You've already made the impressions on it. You furrowed the impressions in it, and then what you would do, you would lightly smooth the outside. You gently smooth the outside, make it smooth. So a bit of dampness on your hand, make it smooth, right? Nice sort of make it smooth. And then smooth enough is green. You then might dip it into a clay slip, right? So you're going to dip it into a bit of a clay slip, and you're going to bring it out, and then you're going to put that into the kiln. And that effect has, you get like a bit of a polished surface to the pottery. So that again is an evolution. Pottery is evolving. Pottery is starting to get more and more evolved. So when we start to think about this, and we start to see other designs and other impressions on the pots. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at design number 2, which is this one. You can see there at the bottom of that pot for the base. Now that's really, really interesting. You get this sort of crinkling effect on the bottom, right? Sort of very sort of crinkled effect on the bottom, and that's finger impressions. That's what they are. Usual thumb impressions, they're finger impressions on the bottom. And that is rather interesting, because that's an innovation. They're starting to think about how we sort of go on to the next stage is flat. Now that's really interesting, right? Just think about that. It's flat. It's got a flat base. And okay, let's just think about this. It's flat, right? So if we go back, that's sort of got slightly rounded base, right? So when you've got a pot with a slightly rounded base, you can it's not really gonna pour over. You know, it's got a rounded base. You can there's a little indentation in the ground. You put it in the indentation in the ground, it's fine. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. It's okay. Rest it. So, but then it may sound really odd. Why am I getting obsessed with this next point? Because then you've got flat bases. Look at that. They're flat bases. Now, how is that happening? You know, that must mean that they've got flat surfaces in their homes. They're not as higgledy-piggledy, and they're not as basic as we think, right? You know, things have evolved. You know, things have changed, right? Now one of the things that we do know, and this is quite topical now, is that we do find lots of pottery and lots of other artifacts, like bronze and stuff, being placed deliberately in lakes. Now, we come across that with Francis Pryor's work with Flag Fen, and we'll come across that soon as well. And again, it's almost as if people are putting things in lakes when there's problems with the climate. Is that exactly what's going on? So what we try to do is we try to use the oh god, I can't get my words out. Use the technique of seriation, which was devised by Flinders Petrie, right? So you can understand you've got a rounded bottom there, and you've got a flat bottom, right? That when you've got a flat bottom, that's evolution, right? That's seriation. So in the archaeology, if it's got a rounded bottom, it's older. If it's got a flat bottom, it's more it's later, right? One's earlier, one's later. These are naturally later. It's known as seriation, right? So one of the things that we can overtly think about with the work of Flinders Petrie is he teaches this as things start to get more complicated, i.e. you've got evolved rims. What you start oh hang on, oh what's happened there? What you've got is evolved rims. You're starting to get rims, right? And you've got this sort of cowrie shell impression in it as well. You've got like a shell impression, right? Obviously not cowrie shells in Britain, but you've got like a shell impression there. What if I got that wrong or right? Anyway, forget that. But you got the shell design on there as well, and the rim. Now we take for granted today. We think okay. We think right, a piece of normal pottery, right? We think today it's got a flat base. Most of our pots are most got a flat base. Plates got a flat base. Bowls have got flat bases. Frying pans have got flat bases. Kettles have got flat bases. I know you're going to say that you've got a bowl in your kitchen which has got a rounded base, but they're usually flat, right? So that's evolution. Usually, lots of our objects have got rims on them as well, properly developed rims. But rims have sort of gone out of the window a little bit in more recent years. When you think about, for example, a mug that doesn't have a protruding ring, has a flush ring. But again, rims are being evolved. So all of these different things tell us that the artifacts are more recent in archaeology and history than meets the eye. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna take a nice break. And then we're gonna look at a little bit more about this, and we're gonna try to get to grips with some more of this stuff, and that'll be it. So right, okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get Drina back on. Wonderful glasses, Drina, and we've got people who've applied to do the live show with us, and a couple of the applicants have got really snazzy glasses. So the one that we choose, Drina, I will send her a photograph of these people's glasses. It seems that lots of actors these days have really snazzy glasses. So I think it's interesting, wearing off on you. Right. Anything, Drina, you'd like to say?
No, it's fascinating. I always thought they had to they put a coating on pottery to make it shiny, but obviously not. They just rub it.
In a way, Drina, actually, you're right, and you're right with both of it. When you say, I did actually say they what you do, the item, right? Okay, then you've made your pot, right? You've made your pot, and you allow it to go green. So when a pot's going green, it's basically hardening, it's drying out, right? You don't want it to go too green, right? For lots of other reasons, right? Because when you put it in the kiln, then it's gonna dry differently, right? So obviously you need that process of the grits and the gravels and the pot to sort of do their work, and sort of. So when as you know, when something's drying out rapidly, right? It shrinks and it sort of cracks, right? So you don't want that with a pot. Oh God, I've what was the question again? I've missed my point.
How you made the pot shiny? Did you just rub it?
Oh right, yeah. Then what you do, you dip it in a clay wash. Right. So usually what happens is that you can just work this out. So you've got a bucket and it's not clean and it's collected from an iron oxide rich river, right? And actually in an iron oxide rich river, that's where they get the clay, right? So what they do, they mix that in the water. They sort of mix that in the water, and then you get the green pot and you submerge it in that, right? And then you bring it out and you allow it to dry, right? And the process is that hopefully some of those Sasky oxides, some of those iron oxides within the clay mix will actually be absorbed on the outside of the pot, and then you put that pot in the kiln.
Right.
That's how glaze developed.
Oh right.
Because what they start to introduce then much later, they start to. This is obviously this. And when I say it's obviously not in the Bronze Age and Iron Age, that's a really bad statement because lead, galena, the oxides for lead are to be found in different parts of Britain, in Somerset, for example. So, the process of we're going to have a clay dip that's rich in the toxins of the lead oxides, the galenas and so on. And that actually creates a really lustered appearance on the pot. And people would have realized that. And then it was only in the 1940s, probably about 1945, actually, maybe 1947, if you want to get the Labour government sort of bringing in their health reforms, that actually lead as a coating for a glaze was outlawed because they knew it was poisonous.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So right, Margaret.
You never see any platters from then. I presume they made platters, did they?
Well, the thing is, platters could be made of bread. Platters could be made of wood. The thing is, I think the problem is, Margaret, you've just said it. You never see these things, but it doesn't mean to say that they weren't there. When we think about prehistory, we've only got 5% of the world of prehistoric Britain ever existing now, right? 95% of it is gone. And even when you think about the Second World War, do you know what? If I had a time machine, right, I would go back to the Second World War and where the Germans had been forced to dump all their old equipment and stuff, I'd get a lorry, chuck her in the back of the lorry and bring it back in time, right? Lots of this equipment was allowed to rot in fields. So you'd have whole, all their uniforms just dumped in big piles in the middle of fields, right? So the point I'm trying to make, get to your my point, the point I'm trying to make is that of all the 13 million German uniforms that were made in the Second World War, we probably have in the millions left. And that's only after 80 odd years. So you can imagine, as a percentage of those uniforms that are left, in this time, the evidence that's left is between 1% and 5%. And you're lucky what you find. You're lucky what you get.
It was
And
interesting.
even one of the things that I don't tell you in this, when you're thinking about pottery, is that even though we're talking about that there's lots of pottery in the late Bronze Age and the Iron Age, right? You're only actually seeing a proportion of the pottery that survived, because some of the pottery would be broken up, some of the pottery would be chucked into rivers, some of the pottery some of the pottery would be badly fired, right? It would be so badly fired that it would go back to clay. Now, you've done it, Margaret, I've done it. You've made clay balls in the garden with your children, or you've made them, right? And you put them in the oven at 200 degrees, and you thought, right, these are marbles. You give them to your children, they play in the garden, right? The rain comes out and the marbles disappear. That our ancestors would have thought the same thing. They would have thought, oh, that'll be okay. We'll just put it. We'll just put it in a bonfire pottery. That's what we're looking for. We're going to do bonfire pottery, right? And bonfire pottery, that's 300, 400 degrees C. It's not going to be massively hot, right? And most of that's just going to decay. So even though we're saying that there's lots of pottery, it's still only a proportion. There's never going to be everything. I watch. I love watching the mudlarks, and I watch them over with that Vorney and the mudlarks, and they occasionally find coins in the videos, and I think in the River Thames there's got to be millions and millions and millions of coins. We're only going to find a small percentage of them as well. So you're looking at history and archaeology from the other way around. Evidence exists, but you're probably not going to find it anyway.
But it was interesting that you said that the later pots had flat bottoms. I wonder if they were making shelves to sit them on, wooden shelves.
Well, interesting enough, if you go to Skara Brae 5,500 years ago, they had flat shelves.
They did, yeah.
And you're thinking, well, okay, why have they got rounded bottoms when they could have? You can't put a rounded bottom thing on a flat shelf. So what were they putting on the flat shelves? So it's that sort of, it's that sense of oh God, it's that sense of connection. It's trying to work out not what came first, the chicken or the egg. Something did come first, but what were they using it for? I don't know if you've ever done this. You've created a shelf and never used it, right? So why did you create that shelf? Or you've created a shelf and you use it all the time, right? Or you've created a shelf and you've done nothing with it. I used to say, right? I used to say years ago, I wanted to buy a house, right? I didn't buy a house, I built a house, but I wanted to buy a house and have a room in it with nothing in it, right? Absolutely nothing, right? I wanted a room which had nothing in it, absolutely nothing. And I wanted to have that room as an empty space. Now, in 1,000 years' time, they might see that room and they might think, what did they do in this room? What furniture was in this room? What did they eat in this room? Why is it a big space? They must have used this room for lectures. They must have used this room. But no, it was just an empty room. You see the point? So it's that colour of one thing you can't lose in prehistory is the colour, right? You can't think that prehistory is one thing meets all. Right, when you start to go down that avenue, you get in problems when you're talking about prehistory, astronomy, and ritual. Right. So if I said all of these sites in prehistory are to do with astronomy and ritual, right, me and Andy would laugh at each other and say that's not true. Right, maybe one or two were, right, but and maybe one or two were at a certain time, right, but it's not always going to be like that. We're human beings. We never stand still in one moment. For example, I spend over these past few months I've been a bloody sheep farmer. I'm actually an archaeologist. I'm an actor. I got some acting work coming up. I'm teaching my archaeology now, and it's just like I'm an author. I got to get on with my book writing. I do lots of different things. People in prehistory was exactly the same as that, except they didn't have Waterstones to sell books, but they may have acted, Right. Andy, anything?
Yeah, lots, but just to get, I've actually just
Give us
to
your
go to that
lots.
ritual and astronomy thing, is that I was actually watching a documentary on the NASCAR lines a couple of days ago, and it was, lots of that supposed to be lined up with this, that, and the other, and in the end, they actually proved that most of that was rubbish. That they weren't. Some of them were loosely lined up, but most of them weren't. But also that it was the same thing, that they were happy to accept that some may have been done to line up and others were done for other things, because they're not all done at the same time. They were done over 1,000 years. So there were all sorts of uses and things and all the rest of it. So, but it's modern science, because they were able to predict through computers where the alignments would have been when they were actually made, meant that they weren't nowhere anywhere near. So it's a popular misnomer, a lot of it, isn't it? But that doesn't mean to say that some of them weren't, like you said. So
well, that was obviously Reich's study when she was studying that in the 1920s. It was like she went out and she said there's alignments with everything, and it turned out she was wrong.
Yeah. Most of the time. Some of them were lined up, but most of them weren't. Yeah. And of course, some of them might have just been aligned up by coincidence. So
and that is the thing, by coincidence. You've hit upon something. And by the way, Carly in the States, who's one of our subscribers on here as well, so she pays her dues. She says hello to you all. When I went to Woodhenge, right, and I've been there a couple of times at solstice, but when I went to Woodhenge, I didn't feel it was about there once being a henge here, right? I felt it was about being there. It was a sense of occupying that space. And when you think about occupying that space, and we talk about following the line, and we talk about Tim Ingold, and do you know what? When I was building this structure, I would stand in the posts in the pouring rain, right? And it would be a completely different atmosphere standing in the same post as the same pouring rain outside. When you went outside the posts, you were in a bleak open field. But when I went inside the posts, I felt that there was something special, right? Now, that's not to do with solar eclipses. It's not to do with astral lines. It's not to do with ley lines. It's nothing to do with that, right? It's my perception of space, right?
Feeling safer, maybe feeling safer.
It could be.
Yeah, that actually, you've hit upon something. You're feeling safer, and but I'm trying to, if we focus on a minute, and safeness is not about building hill forts, right? When you build a hill fort up on a hill, right, everybody can see you, right? When you build a hill fort up on the hill, they can stop you getting food and drink. When you build a hill fort up on a hill, they can camp all the way around you, right? And they can stop you getting access to your animals. They've taken your animals, they killed them, they've occupied your fields, right? You are vulnerable, right? So you're more vulnerable in a hill fort than you are in a load of posts that you can get in and out of, right? And it's, I think it's dangerous when people talk about warfare a lot in prehistory. I don't like it, but unfortunately, as we go into the Iron Age, I'm going to have to talk about it. I can't just ignore it. I can't ignore swords, and I can't ignore people's limbs being cut off in the Iron Age. I can't ignore the point that somebody's been killed over there with a sword taking out half their bloody chest. I can't ignore that. But you can't think about that those are moments in time. Those are not all the time. They're moments in time. So say for example, somebody, I can't remember when it was. Somebody published recently. They said in London, somewhere in the 1800s, there were 7 murders in a whole year. And I said, in London today, there's something like I don't know. Was it? I don't know if it's got to be in the hundreds, right? Maybe 1,000 a year in London, right? But if you work out a proportion of population, it still doesn't make sense. There's more murders today, right? And but things change, ideas change, perspectives change, and maybe London is more violent today than it was in the medieval period, right? And we always think that London was really violent in the medieval period, right? So if somebody sat, this is a point, right? This is a really good point. If you're judging certain parts of prehistory as being really violent, right? Compare 100 years, 600. Compare 100 years in 600 years BC, right, with the 100 years that we've just had, right? And per proportion of population, our last 100 years has been more violent than any century in human history. So how can we talk about prehistory being a warlike culture where people are killing each other when we've been more violent in the past 100 years? There were 100 million deaths in the Second World War, right? And yeah, so yeah. So we've gone off on a tangent there, but this is really important when we're talking about prehistory. Was it as violent as it's made out? Just because there's a sword there, it doesn't mean to say that a violent society, right? I've got three swords here, right? One was used by my great granddad to bayonet the Frenchman in the First World War. The other one was taken off a German officer, right? And these two swords are here, but I have never used them. I'm never going to use them in my life. But they're still swords. But does it mean I'm a violent person? No, these were used over 100 years ago.
Would you use one of your weapons if somebody threatened to come and carry Michelle away, or one of your children?
Well, put it this way, you wouldn't know about it. The golden rule around here is if anyone comes on our property, they don't leave.
I'm not coming to visit you then.
Yeah.
Oh, Margaret, as long as you bring some donuts, you'll be fine. Roger, anything you would like to say?
In particular, I've studied a lot of the pottery you mentioned from those documents, especially around Roman pottery and their stuff in the forts, as well as stuff that's come out of Gaul and northern Germany. And as you said, yes, things changed. The way they made the pots went from forming to spinning on tables and stuff. And the slips was very interesting because you got a number of slips, lead slip, tin, and stuff like that was used in the many forms that were classified for many uses. And some of them were like a plate form with a rim around it, type of thing Margaret was asking. Now, that was quite popular in the earlier times of the Romans, but that migrated then to the medieval with some more decoration around the lips of the jugs, for instance, which was found in Trelech. That decoration became what they mentioned rims, formed by fingers, very often small fingers, children maybe or women. And there's a lot of history there showing the times of different uses. And some of the pottery, the fabrics on them weren't as smooth, and you got grains in them, very rough pottery from identify, which people in places will identify as from different areas, showing the age, which is useful. The better pottery will preserve the rougher pottery with a coarse grain can then deteriorate in a better way, depending on what it is.
Yeah, so obviously
it's a tremendous study, really, and for what was around in, for instance, Cardiff Castle from the Roman times up, where they had the better pottery and the greyware, they called it, and stuff, the more common stuff. Of course, there were later on as well metal plates and stuff, pewter, but later on, so that migrated into that in the more modern times. But
obviously, it's all to do with styles and fashions as well. It's not just.
Yeah.
We see a lot of pottery in the Iron Age, and it's just the fashion is to have pottery, and it's easier and more economical to make and use. People have got more of a skill. Right, okay then. Anything, David, and anything?
He's gone.
No, David's still there. He's got to put the kettle on and have a cup of tea.
He needs to switch his light on. Can't see
Yeah.
it.
No, David's okay. He likes to be David. He likes to engrange over time.
I can see it's dark from here. Yeah.
Okay, anything, Peter, and we'll have a break.
No, nothing for me. No, good.
I just
Okay,
looked up the
we'll-
murders
we'll-
in London.
Oh,
Do you know how many there actually was in 2023?
let's have a guess. 1,000. Come on.
113
not that many then.
and 590 in the entire country recorded.
Well, we've got a police force, haven't we? They didn't have a police force in the Bronze Age.
Andy, I have got that completely wrong. So obviously,
Yeah,
I've been
I was
listening
quite
to
interested because I thought it was quite a bit exaggerated, but
Yeah.
I am glad it's exaggerated. So
yes, yeah,
right, but it's still quite a lot when you think about it. I'm actually quite surprised. I'm glad you looked at it. I'm glad I'm wrong.
many.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But it's a difficult one to know because you don't when you go back in history you don't know how many because a lot of them were just kind of pushed out of the way and hidden, weren't they, in ditches? Funnily enough, all the very popular places. Thank goodness, otherwise we'd have nothing to do.
So the figure for London in what was 100 what
2023, the figure for London, the registered number, I just quickly looked it up, was 113 registered murders in London in 2023, and it was 590 in the entire UK.
I'm glad I didn't run away and said there's thousands. Right, okay, then that's good. I was getting close to it, and I thought there's something not quite right if I say that. Right, I'm so pleased that I'm wrong. Good, I've got something wrong there. But the point I was trying to make, obviously, is that if you want to compare, if you're thinking, why are there 113 murders in London? It's a civilized capital. There shouldn't be any murders there at all.
Yeah.
And we're talking about knife crime and all these other things. Well, they used knives and swords in the past. So is this the same type of culture? That's.
I love the concept though of the security through containment, even if it is just posts, because I think there's something in that. That's really interesting.
There were just 31 murders in Manchester last year.
If you think of the amount of people that live in London and the people that live in Manchester, that means Manchester's much worse.
Yeah.
Oh God! Right, Andy, you're gonna get shot this, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Early days.
Okay, look, we'll have a break until 9:30. All right. So we'll be back soon.
I'll probably turn in now, then, Carl.
You're going, are you now, Rog? So
see you, Rog.
Are we going to see you next week?
Well, I drop off, but it's very interesting, and it's the thing you brought up with the pottery is a vast subject.
It is.
And fascinating
really
because it shows all sorts of things that people in days of old were more sophisticated, with the limited tools they had, and no electricity, than we'd imagine sometimes.
Yeah,
it's a point to take in.
Yes.
Okay then. Okay, folks, well, take care.
And you.
See you soon, Rog. Bye.
Take care, Rog, babe. Well, I'm gonna have a little break, so we'll go from there. Right, so we'll be back at 9:30. So we've got 13 minutes. I'm not going to go outside. Tell you what, I'm not going outside to look at the sheep because I know there's going to be a problem. So we'll go from there. And by the way, folks, right, Peter, look at that. We got some rum.
Oh, very nice.
So here you go, Captain Morgan's. Ah!
Rum, bum, and backy.
I've still got one of those books, Pete, if you want it. Right, okay. Right, okay. I'll be back. Yeah. We've got to get back to pottery. We've got to get onto pottery, and best we've got to try and right. So we're gonna. I've actually found two interesting things that I want to show you before we get into this. So I'm just gonna. We've got a minute to go, so I'm just gonna put the heating on as well, and we will get started. Right. Okay. Good. Okay, folks. We're back with it. We're back with the program. So, okay. Arrivederci, por favor. Right. Okay. So, actually, I thought that I thought that I've forgotten his blooming name. Roger mentioning other potteries and stuff was rather interesting because that leads us directly where I want us to go now. So let's just crack on to that and screen. And we're going to go to there. 2 articles of the week. And I just thought you would be interested in this because this is from the New Scientist. It hopefully you can. Is this coming up on the screen really loud and clear, Margaret?
Yeah, Australia's indigenous people, yeah, making
Right, hang on a minute. I just
2,000 years ago.
okay, good. I'm just going to do a sound check. You can hear me loud and clear, yeah?
Yeah.
Good. You're sounding very faint, so I'm just going to try and get my thingy on. Why? I had you on mute. Don't take it personally, my dear. Please don't take it personally. Right. Okay. No, we got that there. Nope. I don't want that. I don't want my turkey. Right. I thought this was quite fitting. Very fitting. Australia's indigenous people were making pottery over 2,000 years ago. Now, that's really interesting because that's an interesting statement. An excavation on an island in the North Coral Sea shows that indigenous Australians were producing ceramics long before the arrival of Europeans. In fact, was it 1,700 years before? And there they are digging in the hole. Rather interesting that sort of hole. It looks like there's a load of shells and stuff in there. The excavation that uncovered the pottery fragments. Indigenous Australians were manufacturing ceramics on a remote island nearly 35 kilometers from Queensland coast more than 2,000 years ago. Pottery fragments found at Lizard Island in the Coral Sea are the earliest securely dated, locally produced pottery found in Australia that predates the arrival of Europeans. I think that's absolutely fascinating. So the other thing as well is what we've got is this. Oh, undo. Right. What we've got is this. This is actually from a few days ago. Well, when I say a few days ago, is today. Anglo-Saxon pottery found where homes will be built. A number of historical artifacts dating back to the Mesolithic period have been discovered at the site where new homes are planned to be built. Since mid-January, a team from Oxford Archaeology have been scouring the southeastern area of Abbots Vale in Bury St Edmunds, over in Suffolk, for archaeological remains. Finding to date include a Bronze Age barrow, there we go, funerary monument, and evidence of extensive early Anglo-Saxon activity, including sunken buildings, our Grubenhausens. Overseeing the Abbots Vale dig is a fascinating opportunity. And our team is thrilled by the breadth and depth of discoveries so far. And that's what we've got. We've got sunken buildings, Bronze Age buildings, ditches, at a development site. And this in many ways is where lots of discoveries are being made across the country. So let's just get back to where we were. Let's go to the Bronze Age evidence again. And do you know what, guys? I was planning not to go on as long tonight because I just didn't think I could do it, but I've managed. So there we go. So we're back to the flat based pottery, and one of the things that we can say is that this late Bronze Age, early Iron Age pottery itself, we're sort of getting sort of some really good radiocarbon dates from the actual layers that this actual pottery is from. Now, the next image is rather acutely interesting because it shows an interesting type of pottery that's got a dimple in the bottom. It's sort of rounded, but there's a dimple in the bottom. Right, so rounded pots have not totally gone. So let's have a look at the next image. Oh, envelopes. So what you can, oh, hang on, that's not that one there. Can you see that one there? It's slightly inverted, like a modern bowl, number 6. It is rounded. It's got a bit of a rounded base. But what you can clearly see is that overall, suddenly there's a revolution. So this is late Bronze Age, early Iron Age pottery. These are from a sort of across the south, some from Surrey, Lincolnshire, and so on. And you can get an idea that what's happening, decoration inside a pot as well as outside a pot. So the rim itself is decorated inside, and the rim itself is decorated outside as well, which again's a bit of a revolution. And then you've got that very strange like pot there with bits of decoration. Sometimes when you're trying to get an idea of pottery evidence and dates for pottery evidence, what you might do is you might actually look at the layers, and you might actually get dendrochronology dates as well. So you get bits of wooden evidence in the layers, and you can then get the dendrochronology. You can date the layers. So that really gives you a good idea, a good handle on what's going on. So what we've got now is a photograph of where pottery's going, right? And we're going to go on to this next image, and that's where pottery is going. So what we've got this clearly decorated on the outside, is painted, right? It's actually painted on the outside. Now, before Drina asked the question, and we won't allow her to ask the question because we're going to answer it now, Drina. So this type of pottery is now going well into the Iron Age. It's going into as things are developing in the Iron Age with pottery, and what we've got it with a pedestal, right? So it's balanced. There's a pedestal. It's a pedestal pot, right? Decorated, and there's decoration on it. So let's answer Drina's question because I know it's going to come. So what you've got a green pot. It's gone green. You've shaped it, it's gone green, and this is not made on the wheel, by the way, guys. This is made by hand, right? So this is made, and it's quite thin. So I think what is the scale of this? I'm going to estimate the scale. So I'm just going to say this is about 15 centimeters tall, and obviously about 20 centimeters in diameter, that type of thing. It's got a pedestal on the bottom. So that's an evolution. So when Flinders Petrie is saying this is round based, early, flat based, later, pedestals, later again, handles, later again, rims as they develop all the way through the period. That's what we're talking about. But decoration, you've got these like chevron decorations, these sort of square, the linear lines, not sort of a prehistoric thing, is it? But it is, because they're now starting to decorate their sort of chevrons. And okay, you could say this is extremely rare, but people are actually starting to decorate. And the other thing as well is what we've got to think about. We've found examples of Iron Age sort of prehistoric pottery, and as the prehistoric period develops. So the process is, it goes green. You let it sort of go a little bit more greener, and then you might actually get an iron oxide brush, and you paint the little designs on it. You let that get absorbed into the pot. Remember, these pots are very absorbent, right? And what you then might do is you might fire it at that stage. Right, what would be difficult then, what would be more difficult, is to allow this to set, to be drawn into the pot, and then to dip it in a clay wash. But they haven't done that there. What they've done is they've just fired it from the second coating there. So that's basically helping us get an idea how things are really, really developing. So again, what you've got is trying to sort of get sort of designs on these pots as you start to move through the Iron Age. As the Iron Age sort of develops, you've got examples. Number one from North Yorkshire. There you go, up north. You've got, say, as it starts to go down, that's a rather interesting one. You've got that design coming in. It's a flat base, but it's not. It's curved. It sort of curves inwards. So it's sort of pseudo everything, right? And actually the rim is inverted inwards rather than flanging outwards with number 3. And that's specifically from the likes of Norfolk. And we've got other ones. We've got other designs as well. So you've instead of the rim protruding outwards, you've got it protruding inwards. It's inverted. The rim is inverted again. What you can clearly see there is that sort of nice, well, it's almost as if they're, I know Peter's going to pick this up, so I'll say it. It's almost as if it looks like a Cornish pasty design on the rim. And obviously they're getting more intimate with their rims, and obviously what they're doing, they're using shell designs, they're using dyes, they're using anything that they can to decorate the outside. But there's me getting excited. There's another reason why we decorate the pots. Right. And it's more practical, folks. It's not just utilitarian. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to enlarge on that example, number 4. Let's enlarge in number 4. That's from Norfolk, actually. Let's enlarge on that. And what we're going to do, we're going to get my skills as an artist in here. And what you do, these are not relief. These are inverted, right? So they're not raised. These are inverted. So what they've done, shells to make these designs. So what happens as it's drying out? If there's any cracks on this pot, they stop there. You see, they stop. So these actually add to stop any cracking, right? If there's any cracking, it stops, right? So this is an anti-cracking mechanism in the pots. It's not just utilitarian. It's not just to show off. It aids the ability for, if it's going to dry out and it's drying out a bit more rapid, right? And there's going to cracks going to develop. They're going to stop at these inverted designs on the pot. That's a really wise way of making these pots as well. And there, when we get our bowls, our kitchen table bowls, right, we get this inverted design again. We get these inverted designs on our pots. So this design is obviously coming through into the early Iron Age, about 600 500 years BC again. And again, you get these designs across the country. Now, it doesn't take anybody to work out that it's a practical. Lots of these applications are practical. right? Also, what else is practical with the rim? Why do you need rims? Well, you need rims because actually you can hang that one. Hang on, get rid of that. You can put rope around that when you can hang it, right? Okay, right, okay. So how does that work with the other designs? Because that's sort of clearly inverted, right? What is the nature of the inverted design? You might be able to put a cover over it rather than using a stopper in. So you could use a stopper in here to sort of seal the top. You've got a bit of a stopper there. And then maybe over here, you might actually have a cover over it. Or that might be one translation, or it might be another reason why you've got this. But you've got to remember, it's like everything with prehistory, it's everything that we look about in archaeology. There are practical applications with all of this. It's not just decoration. None of this is ever just for decoration. And when you think about it, if you've got the design on the outside, maybe the design on the outside is saying, actually, you don't touch this bowl because this belongs to me, or you don't touch this bowl because there's a compress of henbane and deadly nightshade in there, and you don't touch it, right? So this is the thing. We've got to think that it's not just for decoration. Remember, um, we all feel it. We've never got enough time to do things, and these people never had enough time to do things. I've been in the deep end. I know what it's like to have crops, and we've not been able to plant any crops because it's been too wet, right? So if I was a prehistoric person, I would be really struggling. And what the point is, if you're going to decorate these and you're gonna, it needs to have a more practical purpose. So what we've got as the Iron Age sort of protracts and moves forward and sort of goes on, what we can say is that there's something specific when we looked at that upland site at the Llyn Peninsula with Tre Kerry. Well, listen to this. In the lowland areas, pottery now starts to have a more angular profile, right? It starts to get more angular. You get fingertip designs, you get shoulders, you get ribs, and things start to get more decorated in lowland areas. Um, in highland zones, it's really interesting that some of the early designs actually continue. Instead of sort of these more ornate designs, you might actually be thinking about sort of more of these designs, these sort of barrel type designs for the upland areas. So the question there, why are they not going with the new designs that are not protracted, these new designs that are more fluid, these more designs that you've got in the lowland areas? So there's a difference between upland designs and lowland designs. Very, very interesting that. So again, this would be I'm picking on Gina now. So the surfaces that are burnished sometimes what you might get, Drina, if we think about the earlier designs, what we might get is, as it's green now, Drina, instead of using your hands with a bit of wash on your hands, you might use a pebble. You might use a really nice sort of flinty like pebble, obviously with the skin on it, not sort of sharp. And you might sort of rub that on the surface. You might burnish it with that pebble, right? We know that burnishing is something that's used throughout history. Definitely we get that in the Roman period. So then what that does, and actually, Drina, when you polish the outside of a pot, you're almost as if you're hardening it. So you're going to be using a new firing process. You remember I said earlier on that you're going to be having to fire your pot when it's sort of green, and you need to not sort of shock it too much, right? You can't shock it too much when you're burnishing it, but you are burnishing it. You are making it a little bit more harder. And there are geographical variations with this. Variations now start to appear as the pottery of Wessex, central Wiltshire, that type of area, stands apart from that in the other lowland areas. And there are also a certain type of pottery that we're actually come across in Cornwall as well. So we're getting. I think Roger mentioned this sort of thing stylistically earlier on, and as we get to here, we can start to talk about early types of pottery. So we can think about pottery. Number one on there, for example, if we sort of go to the top there, 1, 2, and we've got the likes of, where is it, 4, and we've got the likes of 5 and 6. They're sort of from the likes of Wiltshire. And then what you've got there is you've got number 2. That's from Fengate. So you're thinking about Wiltshire in the heart of England, and you go over to Fengate near Peterborough. Number 1 and number 2 is very similar, but they're being produced in different areas of the land. And when again we think about number 3 there, we think about number 3 is really standoffish, a really nice rim, right? The rims also might be associated with the fact that when you get a flat rim like number 3, that's being associated because it's being dried, it's being placed upside down in the kiln, and that's therefore how it's fired. And then when you think about all the other types, you go down to the south, you think about Dorset, and you think about sort of regional variations. And if you think about all these about the same time, you know, the 600s, 500s, you think about these designs, you think about the ones in Dorset, for example. Dorset, you've got the sort of the ones, if you look at you look at number 9 on there. Number 9 is from Buckinghamshire, which is very different, for example, from the ones at Dorset. If you look at number 7 and number 8, and the design for number 10, they're very different. If you look at number 5 as well in Wiltshire, you've got the chevrons, you've got the various different designs, and I think number 6 is really, really interesting as well in Wiltshire. So these designs are sort of really different areas, different regional types. And also, yeah, if we think about that, we sort of got these sort of staple little designs in the outside where you've got these little variant stabs and you've got these little holes. Again, these holes work the same. Right, so again, if we think about that in the firing process, these holes are really, really important in the firing process. So hang on a minute, if we zoom in, get that much bigger. You can imagine if they're thinking of any kind of cracking, right? You don't really need to put these dots on there, but if you're thinking, right, you know, it's a thinner wall pot. Now, let's have a little look if it's a thinner wall pot. It's not exactly a thinner wall pot, right? So if it's not a thinner wall pot, then you can get away with the decoration, but you can also get away with the decoration dealing with it drying out quite rapidly. So if you go quickly to hang on a minute, there we go. If we think about that there, it stops there. It stops at these lines. So any drying out stops at these lines, stops at there. Right. So in other words, this is going to be fired at quite a good quality, quite a good standard. Right. You won't be surprised to hear that when you've got Staffordshire ware and when you've got the Staffordshire ware in the late 1700s, and you've got the likes of a Blangarrow ware, which is from Wales, any pots that there's crap marks in there, they would just chuck them away. Right. But back then, they would have just carried on using them. That's the way it was, you know, waste not, want not. Now, this is a rather nice one. This is a rather interesting one here. This is what pottery is going to really start to look like. This is a vase from Swallow Cliff Down in Wiltshire. It's almost intact. You can clearly see that there's a nice bit of rim on it. And this is where pottery is going to go. This is where it's going to evolve to. And actually it looks very Roman, but again, you can see it's a bit warped. This is made by hand. And somebody said, Carl, you sound you're full up with a cold. You doing okay, fella? If you need a break, sleeping bag, some medicine or firewood, just give me a shout. Yeah, that's a good offer. Aren't they nice online? I could do with some bottles of Lucasade, my friend. So if you can get me some Lucasade, that would be really good. Thanks for all that. But as we start to go on, as we start to think about the pottery, it's almost as if there's a revolution. Right, look at this. It's yeah, I have got a cold. I've not been well. So thanks for asking. But this pottery itself, and you can clearly see that roughly going into the 400s, 300s, pottery has a massive revolution, right? And these types of pots actually start to look like the real deal, right? They're really starting to evolve. They are still made by hand, and it's stunning, right?
obviously, you can see that some are actually from the continent, some are from over back in Europe. But if we look at design number one, that's made by hand because it's basically that, right? It is that. Yeah, sorry. Number one is actually that. There you go. And that you can't you think, oh, that's obviously been made on the wheel, and it's got to be made on the wheel, right? But it's not. It's actually been made by hand. Number one's made by hand. Number two itself is from Eastbourne, and that's a really interesting where that sort of evolves, and you can actually start to see the design there, and you can actually see these really weird chevron designs on the outside. So that this is where pottery is leading. This is where pottery is actually going. And it's good to remember that when we start to get deeper into the Iron Age, pottery starts to get more and more evolved, more and more technically better. And again, if you again look at number three, that's a really nice one. Number three, that look at it, it's angular. It's got a rim. It's got decoration. It's got proportion. It's got a flat base. Almost looks like a weird sort of pseudo fruit bowl. It's definitely not a cremational jar. And we look at number six and we think of the Oxfordshire example, number six, and we think, well, you know, that is look at that there. It's like, I don't know, sort of Christmassy type designs on there. Am I going to keep with this idea that as this pottery develops into the later Iron Age, that the decoration is just to deal with warping and cracking and all the rest of it? Well, probably not by that stage. As you know, in history, folks, something starts off for a reason, right? And it does its job. And then as they start to get their skills in firing, they start to puddle more of their pots. They get more of their grit out. And they fire it in a completely different way. Remember, the grit is to sort of deal with warping and stuff, and sort of deal with cracking. But somewhere along the line, they're starting to use different clays and different technologies to ease in the appeasement of the pottery itself. And I just thought this was a good way of thinking about this. And listen to this as we close, really. Listen to this. There's here we go. That right, okay. This is for Peter, actually. Hang on, let's just go, let's get this. Right. So if we go back with number 4, hang on, not number 4 here, no, the other number 4, right? Yeah, number 4. You look over number 4. Right, so you got 4. They're all numbered. So have a good look on the screen. Right. So when you look at number 4, right, you think a number for number 9, for example. These fabrics are often good. They're hard and they're burnished. Right. So number 4 and number 9 are really well made. The one at the top right and one at the bottom. There is one site in Cornwall known as Trevelgue. Peter's going to repronounce this as Trevelgue. I think that's Trevelgue, a promontory fort on the north coast of Newquay, where the earliest Iron Age pottery is found. And the earliest Iron Age pottery in that part of Newquay is granite tempered vessels. And interesting enough, they've got flaring rims, right? So we haven't got an example of this, actually. If we think about flaring rim like that as flaring, right? And this is very similar to pottery that is actually found in Brittany. Thus, while most of the pottery encountered in this period is coarseware, we're starting to get really fine burnished wares as well, Drina. There are parallel fine wares, angular bowls. Yeah, there we go, angular bowl there you go. And we're starting to find this, and also incised and stamped decorations, which you can clearly see. It doesn't need an expert like that. They're also talking about hematite bowls in the south and the beginnings of proper stamp decoration in, of all places, Cornwall. So what they're doing, instead of the stamp decoration being like this, right? It's always been there, right? But what we're going to do, we're going to develop more intricate stamp decorations, and you can clearly see that these pots are getting very, very much more decorated. And what we're going to do there, right? We're going to actually call that a day, because that's a good place to stop. I think actually my voice is running out, and I think you guys have had the best of me, because I don't think they're going to have it tomorrow. But yeah, I've got to get to the doctors tomorrow as well for a blood test. But that's me done. And Jess, let's I'll take him up on the bottle of Lucozade. I can't resist. I've already gone through one bottle of Lucozade today. So anyway, that's it tonight. So what we're going to do the flag fen as expected next week. And a few reasons why I didn't do flag fen tonight. I wanted to do a shorter lecture. Flying pigs. It didn't work, did it? It don't work. It never works. Every time. Every time. Every time. Right, okay then. Anyway, David, anything from you tonight, please?
No, thank you. No. Good night.
Okay.
all.
Bye,
Good night,
David.
David, and
Good night,
hopefully see you
David.
next week. Keep well and safe as always, and have a good cup of tea. Coffee, more
Yeah.
like. Take care, David. Night night. Night night. I don't think you'd have a coffee at this time, unless you're working through. Right, okay then. Peter.
I just had my mug of oxo, but that where you were told that was where the China clay is.
Down in
And
Newquay. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah,
That would make sense with what I said earlier on about the
Yeah.
fact that you're getting better materials to make pottery with.
yeah.
And obviously the China clay. There is I've one a bit of observation. If you get finer clays and you mix gravel with it, it doesn't work. Right? It just don't
No.
work.
No.
I can't. And the reason why I know, Peter, I'll tell you why. Right? I wanted, we've actually done it now anyway, but we use lime and daub and hay on the outside to do repairs. But I actually had with the cat litter stuff was actually clay and gravel, right? We used like a fine clay and gravel. And I just thought, right, buy me a cat litter tray. Not obviously not, the cat didn't use it, but I mixed it in a bucket and whatever, right? And I applied it. It was a really fine clay in this, right? And it actually didn't work because the finer the clay, the less the aggregate you put in it works. So if you've got a very poor clay with lots of sand and stuff and whatever, right, you can put aggregate in it and it really works. But when you get a fine clay, Peter's right, you don't need it anymore. So they found the technology, they started to understand the technology, and they're able to adapt that technology, and it worked really well for their ends. And Peter's right. Anything else? Peter likes being right, by the way. Anything else, Pete?
No, that was it. It was good. It was good.
We mentioned Cornwall at least twice. We
You
did mention
you
that.
did mention it several times, I must admit. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't get over it, Pete. I did mention Lloyd George once.
Even on my mug here, it said no one's perfect, but being Cornish is near enough.
Yeah, I agree.
What it
Pete.
says
I
on
agree.
there.
I agree. I agree. Right, Margaret. Anything from you, Margaret?
Well, I've got a book from our library called Prehistoric Pottery, which is very good. And it just says that many areas of the country seem to have a pottery blank in the late Bronze Age, either because sites have not yet been found or because it was a period in which other materials were used instead of pottery.
Do you know what that is like a really sensible statement. But yeah, that is a really sensible statement. But you've got to also argue that we don't always have good clays, right? We just explained that we don't really always have good clays, and sometimes clays were just not fired at the temperature which would leave the clay to survive.
Yeah.
And it's just yeah, I think that was a really sensible statement. Really was. It says it all.
Mm.
And also, I would go as far as saying that maybe they didn't need pottery. That's as simple as that. They didn't need it. They got different diets. They don't need it. They pestle and mortar. They got that rotary querns. They don't need it. For example, I think if I can get this in my head, some medieval populations in Britain were so poor. And I think we did this here. Some medieval populations were so poor. If somebody had a medieval jug in the village, that was the only one, right? Or they weren't able to get access pottery. They just weren't able to access it. And there are certain types of the parts of the country where good clay. Where I am, right, we don't really have good clay, right? We don't have it. We can't. I can't produce a pot with the clay here because it's all shale, and old rock. It's old sandstones. We have a type of clay, but it's not a clay that you could make a pot from. So and also it's about where in some parts of Britain you've got a lot of wood and you can have wooden bowls, right? In Scotland, where you've got lots of whales being washed up on the shore, you can get a rib bone and it's almost immediately the shape of a bowl. When you think about it, if you look at whale rib bone, it's sort of inverted both sides, right? You just cut a little bit out and you can use that as a bowl. And I've actually seen an example of that in the Orkney archaeology department where they found that one of those examples. I think at Nessa Brodker, I'm not sure, where they found that one had been used as a bowl. So why bother with pottery, love? And if you're going to use if you're going to use a part of a vertebra of a whale, why go through all the hassle of making a pot in the first place? Just seems nuts. It's already there. You've got a whale with how many vertebrae? I've no idea. You've got bowls. They're all lining up. You've all got a bowl in a village. So
Carl,
yeah.
Here where I live, opposite me is the road to the brickyard and to the clay pit. And the clay in there was used not just for bricks, but it was also used for pots as well. And over towards where my Sharon lives, there was a place where the pots were actually made, and there were bits of pots found in the ground around that area.
That is nice, and obviously, it's all to do with the availability of materials. For example, Pete, the reason why at UNE potteries, I think I saw a list the other day. I think there were 20 potteries at UNE at one time, which is near Bridgend, folks, which is in South Wales, which is the other side of Cardiff, and at UNE, the reason why there's all the potteries there is because of the clay. And the reason why there's all the potteries there is not just because of the clay, is they got manganese, and the other reason why they got lead nearby, right? And they got water, and they got timber, right? So you got everything there, and this is the point, and obviously iron oxide's nearby as well. So all of this adds to pottery manufacture that you don't need to go far. Remember, pottery manufacture is based on a low value industry. It is a low value product, except if you're making rich Staffordshire wares or whatever. It is a low value product. We all need it, right? And it's if you've got all the material there, you use it. If you haven't, you don't, and that's it. You use something else. And for example, I can't eat out of a plastic bowl. I just can't do it. It just can't. It's just a feeling of eating out of a plastic bowl. I just can't do it. I don't like eating out of a wooden bowl much either. It's got to be a porcelain bowl or a metal bowl, So it's horses for courses. It really is. Right. Okay. Thank you for that, Margaret. And Andy, I got to be honest with you, Andy. If you should be knocked down by a truck next week without that jumper, tell I want that jumper, love. That's good.
Okay. Good. I like to recycle. There is one thing. The pottery thing is that coarser clays also make stronger pots. So you've got earthenware and stuff like that that is much thicker than that, and because it's made for much heavier, bigger objects and stronger. So you're like even like today, your Denby is earthenware, which has got more grit in it. Yeah.
Yeah, Denby. Yeah.
It kind of like the same you would mix gravel in with your cement to make concrete.
Yes.
So, but again, also stops it cracking. So
I think this is not, people didn't learn this overnight. They took a long time to learn this.
Yeah.
And there is one part, I'm just typing this out here. That I got to get my words together. When they're up until like the early 1700s, we were not able to make the porcelains like China. We did not have the technology to do it. We were not able to do it. So what we made was tinwares, right? So basically, you get Delfts, you get your Delftware, which is like which is fake Chinese stuff, but it's really good, and your Delft, really nicely decorated by hand. But these were not like anything like the Chinese stuff, nothing like it, a Japanese or whatever, nothing like the Far Eastern stuff. And I think we only really got the technology for Staffordshire very much later. And even Staffordshire's not as good as lots of this Chinese and Japanese stuff. And it's again trial and error, and it's about the right clays. Obviously, the answer is quite quickly, Andy. Right, the reason why the Chinese and Japanese are able to make it is because they got the right clays.
Yeah.
We've got similar clays, but they're not exactly the right clays, and that's the difference. If we had the right clays, we were able to do it, but we didn't, and that's the whole point. It's a different part of the world.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, Andy. If there's nothing else from you, then let's do Duna. Oh, go on, Andy. Go on.
No. I was just saying that's fine. Thanks.
Right, and next time you see me, I'll be without this beard again, which is a good thing. Right, okay, Gina, babes. Gina, you got the last say, and yeah, go for it.
Now, I find it all very interesting how the pottery developed in design. I just wonder if there was more to the design in a practical way rather than a prestige way, if you like, or an ornamental way.
Well, as I said, we established they're good for breaking up cracks to keep the consistency of the pot together when it's been fired. You're indicating what's in these things because they didn't have sticky labels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They for example, guys, I did something really stupid the other day, which worked. It's fine. I'm okay. That didn't make me ill. It was the rain. We've got these mushrooms going, yeah, right? They're St. George's mushrooms, and we picked one 2 weeks ago, and we left it on the shelf, and I said, I'm not eating it. Michelle said, I'm not eating it. So about after I've had this sort of cold thing, I thought, all right, what's the worst thing that can happen, right? So I picked some of these, and I fried them, and they're absolutely gorgeous. So we've got loads of St. George's mushrooms here, right? Which they're gorgeous. They're really gorgeous, these mushrooms. The point I'm trying to make is that these people in the past, when they've picked something, there's something in a bowl there, there's something in a bowl here. How do they indicate what's in which, unless you've got decoration on them? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
There's that bowl with the chevrons on, right? You don't touch that, right? But this bowl over here, which is plain, you touch this one, right? Don't mix them up. So is that unreasonable for me to suggest? I don't think it is.
No.
When we look at prehistory and when we look at archaeology, we always talk about, for example, if we look at the Assyrian civilization, they've got all these jars and stuff, with little labels on. There's so and so in this. In ancient Egypt, there's so and so in this, right? It's prehistory. So why didn't we do the same thing? Let's think about it. So yeah. So actually, Gina, you got really the last say. Can you, out of everything you've said, out of everything I've said, right, go in the middle. Can you find any other reason why there's decoration on it?
Show it belongs to somebody, just as a personal.
Oh, that's
thing.
nice. Yeah, that is nice. Yeah, go on, give us one more.
Go can't think of anything else.
All right, okay. So somebody else give us a reason why there's decoration, and that'll be it. Come on, one of you. Come on, shout. Nobody wants to give it a go. Come on, it can't all be me and Drina. So obviously,
Passion.
Sorry, the more the higher up you are.
the more decoration, the higher up you are. Yeah, or the more decoration, the lower you are. You know, you can look at that way. And the you know, you think about the decoration, and I'm gonna say something really silly now, right? You've got decoration on them because some of these things have a certain life. You've got decoration on them like a best before date, and that may sound absolute nuts, right? But it doesn't sound as nutty as it sounds. Look at the Nazca lines, right? Some pottery was made deliberately to be smashed, right? So and they've got certain decoration on them. So certain things have certain decorations for certain reasons, and it's not as mad as it sounds that you've got pots with designs on them. That, by the way, that's been there for 10 bloody years. There's all this crap in it. Just get rid of it, you know? So these people did have these ideas. Or this, yeah, so they're all there. Well,
it's showing that they're all storage pots, but you don't see little bowls that people ate from.
Actually, why do you need little bowls to eat from when you can just get a ladle, or you can just eat from the bowl, and you've got all this communal thing or whatever. So, or you can it's relative, isn't it? You might have a big bowl and you could use it to eat from. It's like a big, so you know, some of us have huge mugs and we can have like 3 cups of tea in it, right? That's unreasonable, but you know, Pete's bloody greedy and so am I. So you know, it does a job.
But you'd want your own little bowl, wouldn't you, to eat from? To ladle from the big pot into your own little bowl.
One second, stay there. Hello. Okay, don't worry, I'm about to finish, so just wait there, okay? I'll be over.
There are a lot of cultures, Margaret, that eat out of a communal bowl today.
Yeah.
Yes.
But how?
Yes.
Where you use your right hand in Islamic culture to eat communal meals with.
Well,
yes.
if it's a stew and there's lots of sauce there.
Yeah, but
practical.
Actually, if there's a big chunk of mutton in it, and there's the bloody bit of bone sticking over the side, you're not going to go in there with a spoon, are you? You're just going to grab the bit of mutton and you're going to chew it. That's what's happening. So yeah.
Well, I like to spoon out all the sauce myself.
I like to lick the bloody bowl, but this is a different time, my love.
No, we can't do that. Yeah.
This is a different time.
Well, I heard that at Musk Farm they found stacking bowls.
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
And they found
shaped bowls in stacks.
They found bowls with contents as well. So
IKEA ones, were they?
Yeah, exactly. Shut up, you. Yeah, I think they were. Yeah, exactly. So, right, okay. Anything else anyone wants to say before we call it a day?
I think you should go and have a gargle with warm salt water, and then put a hot wet sock round your neck.
Hot wet sock.
Clean.
No, a sweaty sock. A sweaty sock. It's a wet one's no good. Got to be a sweaty sock.
Get that clear your head. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's what my mother used to do before they invented those wheat bags.
Yeah.
I tell you what, right? Tell me to. No, I was going to say something terrible there. Yeah, we're not won't do. I was going to say, tell me to lick the afterbirth of a sheep unless I get well. No, I'm going to get well. I'm well already. I'm well. I'm well. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. Okay, I'm not going to do it. It's okay. I'm a vegetarian. I'm not going to do that. So yeah. Anyway, no, thanks, folks. And anything else anyone wants to say? Anyway, thanks for that, Margaret. Anything else?
Just good night, everybody. Good night.
Okay,
night, Pete. See you next week.
Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next week. So I'm going to say good night. Thanks, folks. I'm going to say good night to Peter, Margaret, Andy, and Drina. Thank you. It's been good. It's been good, folks. Thank you very much. Night, guys. Anybody? Anyway, I'm off now. I've got to go and get the gate. So don't forget to subscribe and like. And geometry designs as labels, maybe. I tell you what, guys, if you wanna keep chatting away there, right? I'm gonna leave this open and I'm gonna go off. So you guys chat away there, and I will have a chat with you in a moment. So I'm not gonna be long, right? So I'm just gonna go and do something a minute, and I'll be back. So guys, you stay there. I'll be back now. So keep talking. I want to see stuff in that talk box. Otherwise, I'm gonna be having a go at you all. Hello, folks. I'm back. If anyone's still there. Hello. Anyone's still there? Oh, there you are. So, hi. Right, I'm back here. So, oh God, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? Oh God, am I gonna get this off my phone? Um, oh, hang on. It's all happening tonight, right? So I can't get this off. Hang on a minute. I'm gonna get back to there. Can't get my. Oh, there we go. Right. So where have we been talking? Give your email postcode, fella, and I'll get you a delivery up to you next week, next Thursday. Not telling you what will bring up. You'll have to see the bread bowl. Goodbye. Right. Okay. So right. So yes, I tell you what. Right. If I don't wanna give my postcode out on here, right? So um if you text me, then you know, right? Good, job done. Text me, and I'll text you back, okay? Mr. Wood. Oh God. So as long as it's not a big pig, right? Um, the bread bowl. So Carly's gone now. So I don't know if you're still there, S Wood, but just text me and give E your postcode. Oh God, do you know what my head's going? E code E E E E. My head's going. Yeah. I'll anyway. Just you've got my number there, so just text and I will text you back. Um, good. Any stuff is much appreciated. And any doings. The problem is that there's just so much going on. The weather, as you know, the weather's been so crap. And how do I text? How do I text? What do you mean? How do you text? Well, how do you text? What do you mean? How do I text? How do I text? What's that? Is it, what does that mean? How do I text? You got contact details for me, haven't you? Mr. Woods? I'm sure you have. Um, yeah. So I'll just wait for your response. Oh, do I text? I don't know what you mean. Give E your post. God, I'm a bit E E. I'm doing this in code. Give E your postcode, fella. Your number. How do I find it? Oh, there it is. There, there it is. And then just text me and just that's fine. That's fine. Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe. So I was just gonna have another slurp of something. Yeah, I got to go and get to the doctor's appointment tomorrow. So basically, I was out in the rain for hours, an hour and a bit, and it was just pouring rain. It was just wet, 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 and I just got to chill and I just been not too right since. So I'll wait for your response. So if you want to text me, that's good. And I'll just wait here and then we'll call it a day.
Anyway, no night, folks. I'm off. Diolch yn fawr i chi. Nos da. Don't forget to like, subscribe. I look forward to hearing from everybody. So I'm just going to go on chat. Nothing in the chat on 1. Nothing in the chat on 2. Nothing in the chat on 2, 3. And nice to have you along, Carly and S. Wood and everybody else. Nos da. Diolch.